Okay, good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to the STEM Lockdown Digital School. This is Coding for Grade 7, and I'm your presenter, Mr. Paul de Klerk. And there you can see my email address on the screen. So if you have a notepad with you, you can write that down. Or if you are using a device, you can do a screen capture or screenshot. And then you can send me an email asking me any questions. If I don't answer anything in this lesson that you would have liked to know about, or if you create some code and you would like to share that, feel free to send it my way. I've had a couple of my grade 4 students who are all too eager to share their creations with me, and I love seeing what they are doing. It's quite amazing. Okay, so let us start here. I see many new names, um, people that I haven't seen here before. So if we are further ahead than you guys are, then you just tell me in the chat box and I will redo any puzzles that you guys want me to do. Okay, so if we completed a puzzle and I ask you at the end, are you ready? Can we carry on? And you tell me no, even if one person says no, then we revisit that puzzle so that I can make sure you understand everything well. And then if you already do know the platform, just be patient because I have to take some time to make sure that everybody understands everything the way they should. So just a few, actually, I'm just asking you as out of decency with the chat box, let's try to keep it relevant to what we are doing on screen. So if you want to ask a question, that's what the chat box is for. Okay. Right, so let us carry on and fall right into this. So here are some coding principles. Now I share these coding principles before every lesson. I've been coding for 6 years on and off, and these are some of the things that I have learned through the experience of coding, and some things that I want you guys to build your foundation on when you start coding. So the first one is we always want to start by solving the easiest problem first. So sometimes with, especially if we're doing mazes or things where the character that is on the playing field has to actually do a couple of things, it can become relatively difficult to figure it out all at once. So what I always advise people to do is to break the big puzzle down into smaller pieces. And then we solve the smallest piece, the easiest problem first, and then we carry on from there. So nextly, what we want to do is, and this is at the same sort of idea as the top one, we want to create a sequence and then test it if we are unsure. And then once we know it will work, then we start doing fancy things with it, like putting it into a loop. Okay, if you don't know what a loop is yet, you will see shortly. So before we even put it into a loop, we want to make sure we've created the sequence and the sequence is working, because it's easier to spot problems when it's only a sequence. Once you start putting it into loops and you start using different things, it becomes more difficult to see. Right, and then the next one is we want to make sure that you are using the correct amount of loops. So a loop or a repeat block creates a loop, and that makes code run over and over again. We tell it how many times, and then it will do it that many times. Now what happens, especially with the younger ones, they like to put a higher number in there, and in the easier puzzles it works. The program will stop running once the solution has been found. But in the more difficult lessons, that doesn't happen. You have to put the exact amount of repeats in there. Okay, so that was enough talking on what we are going to do. Now let's have a look at what we're going to do and start doing it. So we are at lesson 11 and we are using IfElse blocks. These are conditionals with B, and there's B then. And we are going to try to do puzzle 6 to 13 today. If we don't get to puzzle 13, because we have some new guys here, that's not a problem at all. Then we just revisit that and carry on and catch up on a later stage. Let me just move over to the coding screen, and this is where we are. Puzzle 6. So what I do is I put the link to this in the chat box. So you can click on it in the chat box, and then if you want to follow along and code on your device, you can do that. Minimize your screens if you have to. Minimize the Zoom call screen, and you can see at the right top corner there's a restore down selector in your browser, so you can use that to make both screens smaller, and then you can see me and do what you want to do at the same time. So for those of you that are here for your first time, I'm going to run through this very quickly. We use code.org at the moment. We are developing our own curriculum and our own software, but for now we're using code.org, and this is what is known as block coding. So block coding is very good for us to learn on because it's visual. You don't have to type a lot. You can run through the lessons and learn the concepts really quickly. But when we start using code in the real world, we'll be using line and text coding, but that we want to start implementing that from higher grades. Okay. So here we are on lesson 11, if else with B, and we're on puzzle number 6. The green ones are ones we've already done, and the white ones are ones that we still have to do. So over here we have the play area where we can see our character in this puzzle. Our character is B, and this is the maze that he has to complete. Okay. And then on right under that, we have this run button. So whenever we hit run, the code that we create here in the workspace will animate him and make him do stuff. And this when run block is connected to that run button. So once we hit this button here or click on it, then that activates any code that is under it, and it starts making it move, okay, and acting out what we tell it to. Without this when run block, nothing will work. Okay, we need something to trigger. That's the language we use when we're coding. It needs to trigger the code and start going, right? So here is the workspace, and we see in this workspace there are 10 blocks available, but one is already used, so that's for the when run block. So in actual fact, we only have 9 that we can put in here to make the bee do what it needs to do. If we want to start over at any point, we click here, and I'll show you a bit later, once we have code on here, we can view the line code there, okay? So these are the blocks that we use, and they're pretty straightforward. The blue ones, I call them action blocks. So this one is move forward. So when we put that in there, then he's going to move forward. If we put a move forward block 2 times, then he's going to move forward 2 times, right? So you can see there, he would have moved 1 time and there for the second time. If we put a turn right block, he's going to turn right. It's not your right, it's the right of the bee. So if we put a turn right block now, he's actually going to turn to your left, his right, okay? And the same with the left. If we put a turn left block, he's going to turn this way towards the workspace. We can change these as well. So if you already have one on your workspace and you don't want to drag in a new one, you can just click here and change between left and right. It has a toggle function. While I'm on that, we can move on to the next one. This is a get Nectar block. Now there are different ones for different puzzles. When we're doing Minecraft, this might be a destroy block. When we're doing, there's another one with a farmer, then might be dig or fill a pile or something like that, okay? So it's going to be different from each puzzle that we have, but this one is telling him to get nectar from the flowers. The next one is make honey, and this one will tell him to make honey if there is a honeycomb where he is going to work at. Right, so this one is a conditional. This says that if you are at the flower, Mr. B, then you have to do something, okay? And if he is not at the flower, so this statement is false, then he will just skip whatever is there. So the way we're going to use this one in this puzzle is this way. So we're going to say, Mr. B, if you are at the flower, we want you to get the nectar. But if you are at an empty space like this one here, you need to skip this and do nothing. So if this statement is true, get nectar. If this statement is false, do nothing, okay? And then the last one we have is a repeat. So I showed you earlier, if you put 2 move forward blocks or 3 move forward blocks, let's go with a few more because it's easier to see. So now we've used 5 blocks. Remember, the number 6 is the when run block. We've used 5 blocks to tell the bee to move forward 5 times, okay? But if we put a repeat block and we put 1 move forward inside and we tell this to go 5 times, then we're going to have move forward 5 times, but we're only using 3 blocks, okay? So with the repeat block, you can use any other blocks in there as well. So we can tell him to move forward and get nectar, And then he's going to move forward once, get nectar once, then he will go back and do move forward and get nectar again. We can put conditionals in there. You can even put other loops inside loops. These are called nested loops. Okay, so this is just a very, very quick run through for those of you that are new that might not have played on this before. Okay, so are you all ready? Did you all copy and open the link there? So just type a yes in the chat box if you are ready so that we can start going. Now I see some familiar faces here. I think maybe you guys don't have the link because you might have come in a bit late. So once you're ready in the chat box, give me a yes, and then I will continue. Anyone there? So you click on that link, it will open in your browser. You can restore down the browser tab to make it smaller. And you can restore down your Zoom platform to make that smaller so you can have both of them next to each other on one screen. Your video is off. I know accidents happen when you're using a small screen, so I understand that. But try not to switch it on too much. Okay, we are live as well onto streaming platforms, so I'm not going to wait for this chat the entire time. What I am going to do is just get going with this puzzle here. I just want to check one thing. Okay, so the chat box has been set to public. And I just want to see. Okay. So all the settings are there for you guys to use it. Everything's right. Okay, so let's carry on. So as I said earlier, the easiest problem first. We want him to move forward, and when he sees a flower, he needs to get nectar. Okay, but we can see that there are some blocks that do not have flowers, or some spaces in this maze. So we're going to set that up so that he only gets nectar if there is a flower. If there's no flower, he's just going to move on. But before we can even get there, he has to move. So we're going to start with a move forward. Then we're going to say, if at a flower, get nectar. Okay. So this is going to happen a couple of times. We want him to move 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 times. So we put that entire thing inside a loop. And we tell the loop to repeat that sequence 6 times. Right, so now 6 times he's going to move forward. If he's at a flower, get nectar. If he's not at a flower, it'll just go back to move forward. Okay, so this will say move me forward 1 space. And here you can see if you hover on them, if there is a flower, honeycomb, the specified direction, then do some action. So this one can also change to a honeycomb, but we don't have honeycombs here, so we're just using it as flower. Right, so when he comes to the bottom here, he obviously has to turn to his left. So we want to make him turn left. And then he needs to move 1, 2 spaces, 1, 2 spaces, and then he needs to turn left again. Where is this? Turn left again. Okay. Now all of this is going to move our bee from there to here. And then we can see that for him to move up here and go back there is going to be the same code that we're using for this side. So all we have to do is we take this entire sequence and we put it into a repeat block, and we repeat that 2 times. Now let's run this and see if our solution is correct or not. And I make mistakes. So if I made a mistake, we will see it now. That's why I always advise you guys to test. Okay. Right. Let's go back to this. Tell me there, Gal, can you hear me? Are you good? Just send me a message in the chat box. And anyone else? Send me a message in the chat box and tell me, are you ready? Do you understand this? Can I move on? Okay. Good. Right. So I see 2 have responded and they said that we can move on. So that's exactly what I'm going to do. I'm going to run it one more time so that we can see what it looks like. And then if you follow here on the workspace, you can see the yellow moving where the code is running. Okay. And then we continue on to the next one. Okay. Now I just want to make honey. So let's read. Some of these clouds might have honeycombs under them. Be sure to check if a honeycomb is hiding behind each cloud. If there is a honeycomb, the bee will need to make honey once. Okay, so it's telling us here for this exercise and this puzzle, he will only need to make honey once, right? So there are 2 clouds here. So this is where an if block, a conditional if block, comes in handy. So there are 2 ways or 2 times that we would want to use these. The first one is if there isn't a pattern. So like now we have the 2 clouds there. Maybe later on we'll have a cloud there and a cloud there, right? So then we want to use an if block, or if it's not spread evenly like in the previous exercise. Another time is when they are covered with something. So we do not know whether it's honeycombs under those 2 clouds. Perhaps there are flowers under them. So we obviously cannot just say move forward and make honey, because he only needs to make honey if there is a honeycomb. Right, so in the chat box, tell me, this is an easy one. What is the first block that I need to put in our workspace? Move forward, great. I have 1 move forward there. Okay, and remember the move forward needs to touch there. If it doesn't touch and we hit run, it's going to tell us there's unused code there. Okay. What's the next block that we put there? So now we've moved 1 block to there. So the next block, okay, you're saying if honeycomb, make honey. And Ayanda says turn left. I like this. Now we are coding. We are creating something and we can start testing and seeing what happens. Right, so let's do this. Let's run it right where it's at. Oh, goodness me. So he moved forward once. He checked to see if there's a honeycomb and there wasn't, so he didn't do anything. And then he turned left right there. So what do you guys think is the problem here? I think we need to add something here at the top. Yes, another move forward. Remember, easiest problems first. So the easiest problem that we had was how do we get him from there to here? And we missed 1 move forward. Okay, so now he's moving forward there. He's moving forward here. When he gets here, it says that if he is at a honeycomb, he needs to make honey. Then we want him to turn left, but we only have 1 block left. So this code here, everything up to the turn left, is going to be the same sequence that we use over there. The same as we have here, because you can see it looks the same. The only unknown we have is what's under the cloud or clouds. So someone's saying nest it. I don't think we have to nest it. We can just loop it. Remember, a nested loop is a loop inside a loop. Now we only have one loop. And this is a conditional, it's not a loop. But yes, we need to put it in a repeat block or loop it twice. And we want to make sure that we put this turn left outside. It's not going to make a difference in this exercise. But if you had a square here and you put it in there, it would have made a big difference. Okay, so let's run it. Okay, he's moved twice. Oh no, he's hitting his head. Oh. You know what, guys? We're being silly here. We can make this really short. I just want to test. There we go. Okay. So I think the first thing we need to do is figure out whether our code is right. So this is what we had. And if we run this, we can see he's at the right place there. So remember I said we first do the sequence before we put it into loops, because things become very confusing once we start using loops. Okay, so what we want to happen here is he needs to turn left. Okay. And this entire thing, no problem. We need your help here, so I'm glad that you're here. I'm struggling today. My head is flat from helping the grade 4s earlier. Okay, let's see how this works. I want a 2 there, not a 0. There we go. That's better. Okay. No. We don't want that. We want to go back. Oh, I'm pasted the wrong link for you, Rita. There we go. That's the right one. Okay, so let's start this one over, because I think all of us, there was a few people were coding their own thing and then we tried to combine it all. So the first thing we had to do is we had to move the B from here to there. Okay, so for that we are going to use 2 move forwards. Now remember, when you move forward twice, or you do anything twice, whether you use 2 blocks or whether you use a repeat and 1 block and you set this to 2, you're still using the same amount up there. Okay, so it's only needed to start using a repeat block when it's more, when you're doing one action more than 3 times. As soon as you're doing one action more than 2 times, or you're using 2 different types of actions, then you need to start using repeat block. Okay, so we want to move forward once, twice. We're going to check if there is a honeycomb under the cloud. If there is a honeycomb, we want to make honey. Then we're going to turn left. And we're going to make all of this happen twice. Okay, so I made a mistake here earlier, because usually we only have 1 move forward inside the repeat block. So then we need to put the turn left outside of the repeat block. But because we are moving twice, it's okay. We're still going to move 2 times and then turn. So we can put it inside. We have to put it inside. If you put it outside, it's going to move 2 times, check for honey. Then it's going to go back and move 2 times again and check for honey before it turns left. Okay. But if you're only using 1 inside there, then you obviously want to put the turn left outside. Otherwise, it's going to move once, turn left immediately, move once, turn left immediately. Okay. But for this exercise, this is the right solution. I think this is what you guys were saying. Okay. Do you understand that one? It's actually a very easy one. It wasn't supposed to trick us. Or me, at least. I think you guys had it. Are you ready? Can we move on to the next one? And Rita is saying yes. Gao is saying yes. Okay, I think we could just carry on. Okay, this is a video. We don't watch videos here. We come here to code. Right, so now we have something interesting. So, okay. Sometimes a cloud covers a flower. Sometimes it covers a honeycomb. Use the IfElse block to collect nectar at flowers and make honey at a honeycomb. Remember, if there is a flower, the bee only needs to get nectar once. If there is a honeycomb, the bee only needs to make honey once. Okay, so this is the new block. And this one is an if-else block. So what this one is saying is, if there is a flower, if this statement is true, get nectar. But if this statement is false, make honey. Because we know there are only two variables here. The only two variables are whether it is a flower or a honeycomb, okay? There can't be any others. So if it is at a flower, get nectar. If it is at something else, which in our case will definitely be a honeycomb, make honey. Remember when we use the if block alone, without this else. So let's say we had a longer one than this. We had to move forward, then in the center check, then move forward again twice. So if it's only an if block, there's no else. What's going to happen is it's going to say move forward, then it's going to check for this condition. If it's true, it will get nectar. But if it's not true, it's just going to carry on to the move forward that's right after the block. But now we can tell it, if that statement is not true, then this one must be true. So we want you to do that. Okay. And this is our solution. Very easy. B, move forward once, move forward again. Now, check. If you are at a flower, get nectar. If you are at a honeycomb, make honey. And there we can see it was a honeycomb. You can actually change this around as well. If we change this to honeycomb, then we want to make sure that we have this sorted. So if at a honeycomb, make honey, otherwise get nectar. And if you run it, you can see the code works again. Okay. So you need to be very careful of this so that you don't accidentally change it, because now it says, if you're at a flower, you need to make honey. And if you are not at a flower, meaning you are at a honeycomb, then you need to get nectar. So this obviously won't work. Okay. So this is very easy. Move forward. Move forward. If at a flower, get nectar. If at a honeycomb, make honey. Okay, so do you guys understand this? Are you ready? Can I carry on to the next one? Okay, Rita says yes. Gal gives me a yes. Okay. Okay, so now we're at the next one. Now this one is a bit different. For those of you that are new, this works a bit differently than the ones we've had already. This is a question, and then it gives us a few options, and we need to look at the code and decide what this code will do. So let's read the question first. Look carefully at the code below. What do you think will happen after you click run? Remember, there will only ever be one honeycomb or one flower behind each cloud. So let's read through our options. The bee will get nectar at each flower and make honey at each honeycomb. Option B, the bee will try to get nectar from both flowers and honeycomb. Option C, the bee will try to get honey from both flowers and honeycomb. Or option D, I don't know. Right, so this, the last one, is not an option in my book. So we need to figure this out. Okay, so we see there's a bee here. There are 3 clouds there. I'm going to enlarge this. 3 clouds. We do not know what is underneath these clouds. Neither does the bee, and neither do the people that wrote the code. Okay, so we are going to use an if-else conditional to figure out, or to at least tell us that if one is there, do this. If the other one is there, do that. So this is saying repeat 3 times, and we can see there are 3 spaces. And it's going to move forward once, then check once. Then it will repeat, move forward again, then check, then repeat, move forward again, then check. And this if else is saying, if at the flower, get nectar. If not at the flower, meaning this if at flower statement is false, make honey. So I have my first answer coming through there. A. Razine says C. Let's make this a vote. The one with the most is going to win. Rita says A. Okay, and the answers have stopped. So A is the winner, and in my opinion, A is the correct answer. But let's check. And look at that. I'm going to review this so that we can understand why this is working the way it is. So here we can see the bee moved forward, right? He saw if at flower, the statement was true. So he did get nectar. Then from here, he moved forward again. Remember now, once this statement is true and that action has been completed, then this entire block is done. It doesn't run through this one and the bottom one. It makes a decision here to say whether it's true or false, and then it does one or the other. It doesn't do both of them. It can only do one or the other. So here we saw that it saw the statement was correct, it was true. So it did that. Then our loop started again because it's a repeat block. So he moved forward again. Now he's on this space. So he saw that this if at flower statement is false. So he didn't do get the nectar. He did the else part. Remember, else is saying that if this is false, don't do that, but do this one. And we know that there are only flowers and honeycombs here. So we can use this because there are only 2 variables. So if at the flower is false, so he's going to make honey. Once this action is completed, this block of code is done. It's not being used anymore. So the code runs back through the loop to the top. And it repeated that for the last time, and it saw there's a flower and it got the nectar. Okay, I think you all have this now because most of you gave me the right answer in the beginning anyway. Okay, a challenge puzzle. We're not afraid of challenges, not at all. Okay, so the challenge is this. The bee will, there will be either a flower or a honeycomb under each of those clouds. Collect nectar once if there is a flower, otherwise make honey once because there is a honeycomb. So again, up here in the instructions, they're telling us that the only 2 variables there are is there will either be a flower or a honeycomb. It is also saying that if there is a flower, there will only be 1 nectar available. And if there is a honeycomb, we will only have to make 1 honey. 1 unit, if you want to call it that. Okay, so they're not going to trick us by putting more in there than what this is saying. This is a square, and we have 8 blocks, of which 1 is already used for the when run block, which is linked to this run button. So now it's your turn. In the chat box, tell me, what blocks do I need to put in here? Anyone? Rita, Gal, Ayanda, you've been participating well. Saskia, Razine, you don't be shy. Give it a try. Okay, so Gal is saying, if else. Okay, so if at the flower, then what do we do? Get Nectar. Okay, Razine says move forward. So now we have two different opinions here. So we'll try both ways and see. In coding, there can be two answers to the same problem. It doesn't need to be a right and a wrong. Okay? So if this one is get nectar, then the else has to be make honey. Okay. Rita and them said we must first put the loop in here. Or just Rita. I never know if you're alone or if you are more there. Okay, so there was a move forward as well that Razim said, and I think he actually wanted us to put it here. Okay, we've already used 6 blocks, and I don't think we're close to solving this yet. Move forward and turn right in a loop times 3. Move forward, turn right in a loop times 3. And another loop underneath the IfElse. Okay. I'm going to stop you guys right here, but I can see that you are on the right track. But because we have different people answering us, put the if do else block in the loop. Okay. Because you have different people answering, it's becoming a bit of a confusing story. Before the move forward. Okay, I've done that. Nazine says turn left. Gal says test. Okay. So we have a bit of a problem here. What happens is he checks, he sees the flower, he gets the nectar. He moves forward once and he turns right immediately. Right into there. So this is where I got confused earlier as well. In this example, we would want the turn right to be outside. I'm afraid to add one more move forward because now we're running out of space. Okay, well, we have 8 blocks, so let's test this and see. All right, so he made that there, now there, and he stops. Okay, so let's start from the beginning, make this easier. So first problem that we need to solve is he is right on a flower or a honeycomb there. So there are two options. Either we start to solve that problem first. No problem, Razine. It doesn't matter. This is where we learn. So you put in any ideas in that chat box, okay? Okay, so two ways. Either we solve the problem of doing this one first, or we move down here and then create a loop to get back to that one. So in my opinion, as is said there by Rita and them, this is going to be in a loop that will happen 4 times, okay? But I don't want to start testing my code in the loop. So I know there's going to be a loop of 4 times, but I'm putting it aside so that I can first create my sequence. Okay. Now this sequence says that it has to move forward 1, 2, 3 times, but we don't want to use 3 move forward blocks because if we do that, then we are going to have to use too many blocks. We're not allowed that many blocks. Okay. And then at the end of this, we want to check for nectar and honey. And we obviously need to turn right. And now, when we repeat all of this, we should have a working solution. Let's see. Okay, let's look at this. Let's dissect this and see. Perhaps we can do it a bit differently. I think there is a way. Okay, so first up, we stayed within the 8 blocks, so that's a good idea. Secondly, we used concepts that we have learned already. Nested loops. Loop inside a loop to make it shorter. So what we're saying here is we first figured out how the sequence has to look like, or what the sequence has to look like. So we said we move forward 1, 2, 3 times, then we check. If there's a flower, we get the nectar. If not, we make honey. Then we turn right, and then we knew that this first line of this maze has been completed. But we've now not solved that problem there of the one that's underneath him. But that's okay. We can skip that because the way that this sequence is written, he's going to check at the end of each pathway in the maze. So when he comes back the last time here, he's obviously going to check there as well because it's in the code. Now we know if we run this, it works there. So we can see this solution is right. Then we can put this entire thing into a loop. Because to try and build this code in the loop to start off with is going to be confusing. And there we go. All done and dusted. Right, so are you guys happy with this one? Rita says yes, Rosine says yes. Gao, Saskia, are you all happy with this? Yes. Okay. So we are unfortunately out of time. Remember I said we're aiming for 6 to 13. We got 6 to 11. That's still good. And I hope that you guys understand well. That's why I didn't want to go too fast. Okay. You are welcome to go and practice the next 2 on your own. And tomorrow when we get together, we can look at them again. Okay, so please send your questions to me here if you have any, or you can send some of the examples of what you guys are doing to me. And then tomorrow we are going to start with while loops with the farmer. Now, these while loops are difficult. I'm warning you now. They are difficult. So before we go into this, I want to make sure tomorrow that we meet the conditionals lesson and finish that completely, because the while loop is a conditional and a loop put into one. It's one block combining conditionals and loops. So it becomes quite a bit of a challenge. Okay, so thank you to the STEM Lockdown Digital School. Please ask your friends. Okay, please ask your friends to come and join us as well. We're having fun here. And then I'll see you guys tomorrow. Have a great day. Bye-bye.